What's up, guys? I'm Chad. I'm the owner of Cook Pressure Washing.
Okay, I've been told you guys can hear me and see me. Is that true? All right, awesome. Well, we'll kick it off. I appreciate you guys showing up. Hey, I'm just here to answer a few questions. Obviously, with Top Gun Maverick coming out, we've had a lot more questions about how to become a fighter pilot, and hopefully, I can share my journey with you. If you're interested in becoming a fighter pilot, I wish you the best, and I will do everything I can to give you the information I have to succeed and give you a little bit of my experience. So we got a lot of stuff coming in on the feed. I will just start going through the questions I see first, and we'll go from there. So kicking it off with Gunner, can you tell us your route to becoming a naval aviator? And absolutely. So after high school, I went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I did ROTC. Prior to that, I applied to both the Naval Academy and multiple schools with ROTC programs. I was accepted to the Naval Academy, tore my ACL playing soccer senior year of high school, was medically disqualified for a year, and decided to go to UNC. I pursued ROTC, picked up a full scholarship at ROTC at UNC, and picked up a pilot slot. my senior year, and then started flight school from there. Let's see. Bree from Australia, what's up? That's correct. I am now in dental school back at UNC after flying for 11 years. Just finished my first year of dental school. So I just got out this past year. And dentistry was always on the forefront when I went to school initially. And then I kind of made the decision I was going to follow my heart and my 5-year-old dream of flying for the Navy after, growing up with Top Gun. And so I did that. And then after several deployments and moving all over the country and traveling all over the world, I was exhausted, and I felt like I was missing out on the personal side of life with the sacrifices I made with the Navy and flying jets, etc. And I had achieved my goal of serving and having fun in the F-18. And I saw that if I stayed in, I would have more of a front office job with a little less flying. And I just didn't see that being as much fun. And so I wanted to get out on top. So I did that. My last 2 years, I started applying to schools, taking some prerequisites so I could make an easy transition to dentistry. My father's a dentist. I grew up around that. So that got me interested, and I decided to pursue that. Okay. Thank you for your service. Congrats for hockey. That's awesome. PC of 41. So that was my first fleet squadron, VFA 41, the Black Aces. After the FRS in Lemoore, at Naval Air Station Lemoore, I served in Lemoore with the Black Aces. You can see the helmet in the background here. Did a deployment and a half with them. Stuck around a little longer as a FAC-A to fulfill that role, and then moved to Virginia Beach to be an instructor with VFA 106, this squadron right here. I was an instructor with VFA 106, and then after that, I joined the Jolly Rogers VFA 103 as a super JO, and joined them 2 weeks before deployment to the Middle East. We did a 10-month deployment there. I came home, flew with them for another year, and then got out. So I'm aged out of all the military. So what habits would you say to build into general aviation as practice for non-military pilots? So that's a great question. Flying by 40. I've seen both. I do general aviation. I earned my private pilot's license prior to going to college. So I knew I wanted to fly, and now I'm back in general aviation. I think the thing that the military focuses on a lot more than any type of GA is emergency procedures. So if there's anything I would say to a general aviation pilot who's out there flying around for fun on the weekend is to get into the pocket checklist, look over the emergency procedures, and do some simulated stuff on the ground without the engine turning. Just make sure you know where everything is. Have somebody quiz you. All right, you have an electrical fire. What do you do? The engine quits. What do you do? How are you going to go through your magnetos? Restart the engine if you can. Attain whatever your best glide airspeed is. Start looking for a field. Where are you going to put it down? Are you going to put it down in a field? Are you going to put it down in the water? How are you going to prepare the cabin for an emergency landing, etc.? So you can go through all those emergencies in the pocket checklist and kind of build some scenarios in. And really, a lot of that training is just mentally going through it. And if you're sitting in the aircraft, you can physically touch the buttons and make up that scenario. And that's great training. I would definitely implement that into your general aviation training if you have time. And it'll make you a much better pilot and much safer in that scenario. All right. Have you seen the new Top Gun Maverick? And if you have, how was it and how realistic was it? Yeah, great question. I saw it opening night and I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a great movie. I think they did an incredible job of capturing naval aviation as a whole, especially as it is today, flying the F-18. Obviously, all the filming was done inside of the cockpit. of an F-18. All the actors were feeling the G's, and everything that they did in that movie is training that we do in real life. And all of that flying are things that I've done in the aircraft and that everyone else who flies F-18s has done in the aircraft. I think they did a great job with all the little details, everything from the O Club to the engine fire and the emergency procedure. All of that was spot on with the correct procedures. The only thing I didn't see Phoenix do in that bird strike scenario was drop the tail hook. We would obviously drop the tail hook with an engine fire in case it burns through our hydraulics, and we are unable to use our regular braking, and we'll take an arrested landing back on the field. So I think they did an incredible job, and hats off to them, and hats off to the Navy for being a team player and basically giving them free, unlimited access to naval aviation. What else? Second on the question about post-Navy career decision, what drove you to decide to get out of the Navy and pursue the path you chose? I kind of mentioned it briefly, but a lot of things that you won't hear. Obviously, flying jets is sexy and it's badass and it's a lot of fun when you're young and you're completely focused on that goal of flying. The downside of flying F-18s and being in the fighter community is that it is a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And at some point, your priorities change in life. Initially, early on, I graduated at 22. I was flying the F-18 by 24, and I'm now 34. So my priorities shifted. Early on, my priorities were to fly the aircraft, fight the aircraft, deploy, have fun with my buddies, have fun doing the Navy thing, seeing the world. And as I accomplished those goals, and as I kind of checked those things off the bucket list, I kept doing it, and it was obviously fun, but there is a lot of work that goes into every flight. So a 1.5 hour flight can literally be a 12-hour day. So everything from briefing to pre-flight to getting manned up in the aircraft to starting the engines to taking off, doing the flight, coming back, landing, getting the jet check back in with maintenance, taking your gear off, and then going through a debrief that can last anywhere from 2 to 5 hours, depending on the mission set, rewatching tape, going over every comm call, going over every decision made during that flight is exhausting. It's a lot of work, and it makes us better than any other country in the world as far as flying and fighting the aircraft. But again, it's a lot of work. And after years of doing that, I had kind of reached the point where I need to make a decision on whether to get out or try to pursue a different career. And I decided that if I was going to stay in, that I was going to be a department head. And then later on, more administrative work from there. And of course, you're still flying the aircraft, but you're not flying it as much. Your responsibilities now are front office stuff and at a desk. And, it wasn't worth it to me to sacrifice my personal life and the things I've missed out on over the past 10 years of deployments and being gone for training. Those were now a priority, and that's what I wanted to do. All right, go Heels. Are you still a fighter pilot? I am no longer a fighter pilot. I'm a retired fighter pilot. What did I do to be competitive for a pilot slot? So I don't think getting a pilot slot is as difficult as a lot of people think it is. If you have kind of a go-getter attitude, really the only thing I did was work harder than everyone else. And I really didn't even I probably worked harder than I needed to get a pilot slot. The biggest thing is the GPA and the ASTB. So if you watch the video on the ASTB, getting a good score on the ASTB is huge. And then having a high GPA is huge. I talked about whether you have a technical degree or a liberal arts degree, or you're somewhere in the middle with a life sciences, which is what I did. You need to balance the fact that if you have a technical degree, the Navy emphasizes that. But if you're not going to get a good GPA in a technical degree, then I would say life sciences or liberal arts degree, and then kick ass with your GPA. If you do that and you do well in the ASTB, then you're going to get a pilot slot. The Navy needs pilots. Now, just because you get a pilot slot doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a fighter pilot, right? So about 20% of naval aviation is jets. The rest are helicopters, P3s, et cetera, which are phenomenal platforms. And if you're lucky enough to get a pilot slot and maybe decide not to go jets, which a lot of guys go in wanting to go jets, and they start learning about the lifestyle and about the work that's involved, or maybe their scores aren't high enough and they start to rethink that decision and maybe select a different platform based on lifestyle, which is a huge plus, right? So there are pluses and minuses to each platform. Whatever platform you end up flying, you're going to fall in love with, and it's going to be freaking awesome because you're going to be in the Navy, you're going to be seeing the world, you're going to be doing cool shit with all your buddies, and it's a great experience, especially I think one that everyone should have in their 20s and 30s if able. All right, do you plan to fly as a private pilot? I do. I have an airplane, and I still fly regularly. I flew before the Navy. I'll continue to fly, and then once I am done with dental school, I will definitely have another airplane, a VTOL Bonanza, maybe, but I'll probably hope for something a little faster. All right. Did you consider the airlines? Absolutely. The airlines is a great thing that a lot of my buddies are doing, flying for the major airlines and FedEx and UPS. And every now and then I wake up and think, what the hell did I do? Maybe I should be flying for FedEx right now and enjoying that life. My outlook on it was I really wanted to do something that I loved, and kind of I correlated it to going from a NASCAR or race car driver to a bus driver, and it didn't thrill me. Another reason I got out was to spend more time at home and be around. And airline guys, especially early on, are gone still 14, 15 days a month. If you work 12 months a year, that's still gone 6 months out of the year. And while it is only in short bursts or a few days at a time, it kind of wasn't the path that I wanted to do. Now, I say that now. Who knows what will happen in the next couple of years? Airlines are hiring like crazy. And I've thought, hey, if this dental school thing doesn't work out, then I'll be first in line to sign back up, get my ATP, and fly for the airline. So stick around. Maybe you'll see me flying for FedEx one day. One other similar route. So, officer, you mentioned the path that I am currently on: enlist for 4 years, separate from the Navy entirely, use the GI Bill, and do well in school, and then apply for OCS. Yeah, that's certainly an option. I think you are better off trying to go the seaman to admiral route if able. If you can stay in the military, continue to collect military benefits, and let the Navy pay for school, that is 100% what I would do. You can build up years towards retirement. You continue to get those benefits, which when you're young and healthy, you think, okay, that's not really a big deal. But as you get older and as you start having health issues or just have to go see the doctor, those bills add up, and it's a huge benefit. So if you've got enlisted years in and you have the option to continue to serve, whether that's going to the Naval Academy or a service academy, which a lot of guys do, they enlist for a few years and then they try to join the academy. That's one option. Seaman to admiral is an option if you don't have any years. And then if you separate entirely, that is certainly an option. But I think you are selling yourself short and you're not capitalizing fully on your opportunity there. What rank did you leave as? I left as an 04 in the Navy. That is a lieutenant commander. Let's see. Sorry, I lost my place there. Do you request a pilot slot when you get a ROTC scholarship? It's not until your junior year that you request a pilot slot. And so you kind of go through the first couple years establishing yourself in the ROTC command. For me, my ROTC unit was super small. We had like 35 people, and there were only like 5 or 6 of us in the class. Of those, I believe 5 of us commissioned, 2 of us got selected for pilot slots. And then 1 person went submarines and 2 went surface warfare. We were the only 2 that wanted pilot slots, and we got pilot slots out of ROTC. So you will request that your junior year going into senior year, I believe, if I remember correctly, and then you find out senior year what avenue you're going to go. I remember, because I did well in calculus and physics, my command and the captain in charge of, who's an 06 in the Navy, he was a submarine guy. He tried to get me to sign sub paperwork and said I had to sign the paperwork to go submarines. And it wasn't a guarantee to go submarines, but based on my grades, they needed people. There was like a submariner draft, and they were sending in packages. And anyone who met a certain GPA would have to sign and submit this package. And I literally got in an argument as a midshipman with an 06 saying, I am not signing this paperwork. I do not want to be in submarines. I do not want to go subs. I feel like because I did well in math and science and I had a high GPA and did well in calculus and physics, that I was being punished to have to apply the submarine route. And ultimately I said, sir, with all due respect, I'm not signing this paperwork. You can send it in without my signature on it, but it is not, I'm not signing this paperwork. So realize you may try to get bullied into signing that paperwork. If you do not want to be a submariner and there's a sub draft going on and you're doing well in school, I would say don't sign it. All right. What is the minimum height for a fighter pilot? I'm 5'2". Is that tall enough? I do not know the specifics. Honestly, I don't believe there's a minimum height or a maximum height. It ultimately comes down to your torso length and your hip to knee or your femur length. 5'2" is pretty short. I'm trying to think. We had a few females in my squadron, one of whom was probably about 5'2". She was not a pilot. She was a WISO, weapon systems officer, in the back seat. And I remember she was too small to wear a joint helmet. So the Jahemics, just based on the weight and ejection, et cetera. So that is something that I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry. The best people to reach out to is NAMI down in Pensacola. That's the Naval Aerospace Medical Institute. If you can get a point of contact down there or check out their website, they may have some better information on that size. But basically, once you get a pilot slot and then you go through your flight physical and you've met those prerequisites, you get down to Pensacola, and during aviation pre-flight indoc, they take all these body measurements. Because just because you're one height doesn't mean the rest of your body fits in the ejection seat properly. So, there are guys who might be shorter or taller. We had a guy whose knee would hit the tail hook because he was so tall. He was kind of crunched into the cockpit, and he got 70 hours in an F-18 before they were like, he was taking accidental arrested landings, because literally in the break coming in to land, his knee would hit the tail hook and he would take an accidental arrested landing there on the field. And they're like, what the hell's going on? He's like, I swear I didn't put it down. It turns out his knee was hitting the arresting hook, and he went on to fly C2s. So I don't have a good answer for you, but it is not specifically based on your height, I guess, is the takeaway message. Hi, how are you? Great. What's up, Vietnam? Does the RAG teach AFAC as part of their curriculum, or is that at the gun squadron? All right, so it's actually FAC-A, Forward Air Controller, Airborne, and the RAG, or Replacement Air Group, which is now known as the FRS, or Fleet Replacement Squadron, where newly winged aviators learn to fly their fleet aircraft. So you get winged, and then you go fly. For me, went to learn how to fly the F-18. Spend a year learning how to fly the F-18, doing all that. Learn all the basic air-to-air, air-to-surface tactics, learn how to land on the boat, do that day and night, get carrier qualified, and then go to your fleet squadron. And it's not till you're in your fleet squadron, and it's usually not until you're in your fleet squadron for at least a year and a half until you get the opportunity to get a FAC-A qual. I went through the FAC-A syllabus and got that FAC-A qual at the towards the end of my level 3 syllabus. So you get to your squadron, there's different syllabus that you go through. Level 2, combat wingman, you have to go through that syllabus before you can go in country as a wingman. Then you go through a level 3 syllabus, which is a long, grueling syllabus that takes about a year to a year and a half to get your section lead. So combat section lead qualification. So then you can take a wingman into country, into combat, and then you go through a level 4 syllabus, where you are now a division lead, combat division lead, leading 3 aircraft in country. So you have to be a section lead, level 3 qualified to go through the FAC-A syllabus. I got a waiver to start that training a little early towards the end of my level 3 syllabus. We really needed FAC-As. I was doing well enough in the curriculum that they weren't worried about it and let me start that training. All right. Dental nurse, Bree. Badass. Come be my dental nurse in the U.S. Is there any use for RIOs in modern day? That's a great question. It's kind of a position that's phased out. I have a lot of love for WIZOs, is what we call them now, weapon systems officers. They were RIOs in the F-14. Nowadays in the F-18, they are WIZOs. Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the F-18, the 2-seat F-18 has an extra mission set that the single seat guys do not have, and that's the forward air control airborne. So calling in airstrikes and coordinating airstrikes. And that's because we have multiple radios and a lot of different coordination and communication going on in the front radio and the back radio. The pilot is coordinating artillery support as well as positioning the aircraft and giving clearance authority to drop weapons. The WIZO in the back seat is usually in charge of the brief for a 9-line delivery, and that is basically giving the coordinates and description of the target that we are dropping ordnance on, and communicating with other aircraft to get them talked on to the target. So obviously when we're talking to different people on the battlefield at one time, it is helpful to have 2 people in that aircraft coordinating together with each other and then branching out and coordinating with external agencies to make sure that everyone's on the same page. The other great thing about WIZOs is they do phenomenal work in the back seat with guiding weapons to impact after they have been released, especially laser guided weapons. Tracking moving vehicles is huge. Gaining and maintaining positive ID of targets, which can be difficult. We had a guy in our squadron who was able to strafe a motorcycle, which is a moving target at night in the mountains of a different country, because he had a WIZO in his back seat who was able to track the motorcycle on the forward-looking infrared, which at night, while you're trying to do a strafe run or a gun run, is just nearly impossible in a single-seat aircraft. So still much love for my WIZOs, and they do a lot of great work. Thank you. Good luck to you flying by 40. Is there a limit to what level of contact glasses prescription they will allow you to fly without corrected vision? If you take a look at part 2 video, I have a link to the vision requirements specifically. You can take a look at that. If you have acceptable vision per those standards, then you will be able to fly. As far as level of contact glasses prescription, that is detail that I have no idea about. I don't wear glasses. I did not wear glasses. Some guys, especially after they've invested a lot of money into you and you get older, your eyes start to deteriorate. At that point, guys fly with contacts. You're not supposed to. They issue you glasses, and I've seen some pretty thick glasses, so I'm sure those prescriptions are pretty good. Some guys use cheaters, we call them, which are just glasses for at night. Even if you have 20/20 vision, sometimes it's nice to have just a little bit extra clarity at night when you're trying to land on the boat. So a lot of guys will do that. Just got here and want to know if you've ever seen a UAP. I've definitely seen some stuff that I had no idea what it was. And we try to document that as well as possible. Most of these unidentified things in the air just so happen to be around our working areas and around where military aircraft are flying. I'll leave it to that. Yeah, I've seen stuff up there that I had no idea what it was. We try to take pictures. We try to get information on it with our forward-looking infrared. We try to track it. We bring that back and we give it to our intelligence folks. And then who knows what they do with it, but they're collecting it and trying to figure it out just like everyone else. Bonoche. What deployments have you done? I did a deployment in 2015 into 2016. So we did the Freedom of Navigation Ops in the South China Sea, while And then I did a rim pack down around Hawaii, which was just is not necessarily a deployment, the tail end of that cruise. And then I did a West Pack. That was the West Pack. Then I did a med cruise with VFA 103 in 2019. That was a 10-month cruise, the longest carrier deployment since World War II in the Gulf. What's the Navy's policy on patches on your flight suit? So every squadron has their squadron patch and then a name patch that they issue you. So you wear that. Really, we're not having any other patches other than an American flag. And then you can have a specialty patch if you've been to some sort of weapons school, or an additional squadron patch on the shoulder there. So really, the policy is an American flag, a shoulder patch if you've been to a specialty school like Top Gun. Other than that, it's just a squadron patch. And then, squadrons will mix it up based on the time of year. But as long as everyone's uniform, we would have a different Throwback Thursday is what we call it. So we'd wear old school patches on Thursdays on the flight suit. Alex, cheers. Let's see. Thank you. Did having to spend so much time at sea on a carrier be a reason why you chose to leave the Navy flying career? Yeah, that was absolutely a contributing factor. A 7-month deployment, 10-month deployment. And then what they don't tell you is leading up to those deployments, you do a whole year-long workup phase where you're gone about half that year. Well, it's not in huge increments. It's 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. So be gone for, say, 3 weeks, home for a couple of weeks, then gone for another 4 to 5 weeks, home for a couple of weeks, gone for another 3 to 4 weeks, whether that be on the aircraft carrier or somewhere else in the country, working with the air wing and getting better. We were still gone from home. So, yeah, it was absolutely a contributing factor in me wanting to get out. I'm not familiar with African Lion 2023. What was the attrition in your class during your time in primary? I don't know specifically during primary. I know in API, they were overloaded with pilots at that time. And so the attrition grades for API, if you didn't have over a 90%, or maybe it was a 92%, then you were cut from the class. And we lost not quite half during API, Aviation Pre-Flight NDOC. Some of that were people who just chose to get out at that point, and they weren't feeling it when they got there. And then others just were struggling during the academic phase. Call sign tender. Do you plan on showing more videos of you in the Navy? Yeah, I still have several videos on old hard drives. I have yet to go through all that stuff, but when I get around to it, I will hopefully be able to pull some old videos out. Hopefully I still have them and show a little bit different perspective on some different flights. Most of the video that we take, honestly, I kind of quit taking video unless it was like a cool, like a nice day out. It was just like kind of what you see. It's just like us flying around. So it seems like most people like the start of the flight and the end of the flight where there's kind of action going on around the aircraft carrier. But honestly, during the flight, it can be kind of boring, especially if it's a blue day, because from the GoPro perspective, you really don't have a whole lot of idea what's going on. And then usually during the tactical part of flying, depending on the camera angle and stuff, we don't record a whole lot of that. What do you want to do after the military? I'm currently in dental school, 3 more years to go. You should reach out to CW Lamont for an interview or something like that. Yeah, I don't know who that is, but I'll take a look. Good luck with your studies. I'm heading out to surf. Gosh, Bree, have fun. I love surfing. Heading up to 106 this week. Did you go into the RAG wanting 2-seat, or did something sway you that direction? Gilbert, awesome. I hope you're going as a student, or maybe you're going as a midshipman. I don't know, but 106 badass. I was an instructor there. You're going to love it. I went in, and when it came to selecting 2-seat or 1-seat, I specifically wanted to go 2-seat after, a lot of discussion with guys. I did it for a couple reasons. In 2-seat squadron, you have twice the number of officers, which is a bigger ready room, and obviously most 2-seat squadrons have a lot more fun because you have a lot more junior officers in the squadron than single seat. You also have twice the number of guys to share the ground job with, which they don't tell you when you sign up to be a Navy fighter pilot, that you are also a naval officer leading sailors, and you're going to have a lot of work with a ground job as well that is not related to flying. And that's going to be managing your sailors and managing whatever division or ground job they throw at you. And that can take up a lot of work. So if you have twice the number of guys, then you can share that workload and you can focus more on the flying. And it's a little less stressful, especially when you're going through your qualifications, which is mostly what you're focused on your first 3 years in your operational tour. So I'm 23 and I want to go enlist with the Navy and use them to pay for college. Do you have to do ROTC in order to get a pilot slot, or go to OCS in general? Okay, so you're 23, you want to go enlist with the Navy. So just realize enlisting and commissioning are two different things. If you enlist in the Navy, you are going the enlisted route, which means you are not going to be able to be a pilot, right? You can go work on airplanes, you're going to go to boot camp, and you're going to get right in there, but you're not going to be an officer, and you're not going to be able to fly jets. So just make sure you know the distinction between enlisting. If you go to a recruiter and say, hey, I want to fly jets, they might just have you enlist or sign up. And you're like, whoa, I thought I was going to be flying jets. And no, you're not working on jets. You're doing some other job that maybe is not what you initially thought you were signing up for. So in your position, you haven't gone to school yet. I think your best bet is to apply for ROTC. If you apply for ROTC, you get a scholarship, full ride, and trust me, if you get into the school and you go to ROTC, everyone in ROTC gets a scholarship, right? You might sign up your freshman year, you might be late to that scholarship, but by the end of your freshman year, or I got mine after the first semester of college, then I got on a full ride. So paid for the first semester of college, and then the rest of the semesters were paid by the Navy. You will be on a scholarship if you are in ROTC. All right. So go ROTC, get your degree, and they will lead you through that pilot slot. You do have to do ROTC, Service Academy, or OCS to get a pilot slot. Realize if you go OCS, you have to have your degree prior to going to OCS. You're going to have to pay for school out of pocket. OCS is not going to pay for school for you. That is for once you graduate, if you're still not in the service. All right, biggest study tip for primary. Okay, so the biggest thing in primary are your emergency procedures and your knowledge of the engine and how the aircraft works. So they're going to teach you the monkey skills, stick, rudder, throttle, all that stuff. Where you do well is in the brief before the flight. All the instructors in primary know that you have no idea how to fly an airplane, and that is why they're there, and that's what they're going to instruct you to do airborne. What you need to do is you need to put in the work prior to the flight, and they assess that knowledge in the brief and a little bit in the debrief, but it's all in the brief. You're going to have briefing topics that you are going to brief to the instructor. And if it's the engine, I remember specifically being asked, let's pretend you are a drop of oil. I want to know every place you go as that drop of oil through the engine. So no shit, you have to know how the engine works front to back, nut to bolt. And you got to be able to draw that out on a whiteboard, where that drop of oil goes. So if you want to do well in primary, you need to study those briefing topics, and you need to know all of it cold by hand, like the back of your hand prior to going into the brief. If you can do that and you impress your instructor when you walk in there, you are going to get 5s, which is the best you can get. At least when I was there, like 1 to 5. And then there's where the average student at this place should be. Like early on, maybe they expect 2s or 3s, but if you go in there and you know all your stuff, boom, 4 or 5 right off the bat. And now you are exponentially ahead of your peers in primary. And when you are that far ahead in primary early on, that compounds itself. Ultimately, you're first in your class, or you're at the very top. You have jet grades, and then it's up to you on what you want to select and what you want to fly. And you shouldn't have any trouble getting whatever platform you want. I know you're Navy, but thoughts on Air National Guard? I think Air National Guard's an awesome option. I don't know much about it, but I know that if you want to be based at one place for, say, your whole life, and maybe not deploy in a combat zone, those guys do deploy and they do their fair share of work, but it's not the same as a military, DoD. They are a state-sponsored Air National Guard unit, and you're going to learn how to fly an aircraft. So if for some reason going the regular DoD, Department of Defense military option doesn't work out, I think it's an awesome option. I've thought about going to the Air National Guard and trying to fly A-10s or something as well, just so I can keep flying something badass. And I think it's a sweet gig. I think a lot of guys who get out and go fly for the airlines end up picking up National Guard gigs, flying Air Force aircraft after the Navy. So I think it's sweet. I wish they had more opportunities where I live. I keep losing my spot. Sorry. You have to be good looking to be a naval aviator. I don't think so. All right. How many flight hours do you have? I've got I haven't looked in a while. I'm probably around 1900. So around 1,500 or so in F-18, and then another 100 or two in other Navy aircraft, and then who knows, several hundred in GA, plus all the hours in GA that I forget to log. I don't keep track of it as well as I should. Okay, how does it feel to kill entire families on the ground for insider traders like Nancy Pelosi? Are there common traits the fighter pilots have? So I think most fighter pilots are pretty type A go-getters. They work hard. Everyone in that community is trying to be the best, and with the understanding that you will never be good enough. So, yeah, I just think having intrinsic motivation, discipline, and a desire to be the best and to work hard is pretty characteristic of most fighter pilots. What happened in the Blame the Wizzo videos? Those are just a couple joke videos, Blame the Wizzo, and I'm blaming the Wizzo on his camera skills, not on anything else. I wish he could hold the camera still so you could see everything. That's what happened there. Have you ever engaged enemy aircraft? No, I've never engaged an enemy aircraft. We have joined up with Chinese aircraft and other aircraft, but engaged, no. Are fighter pilot wives super unfaithful? I don't know. I'm sure some of them are, and I'm sure it goes both ways. But I've never been married, so I don't know. I did have a girlfriend who was not very faithful during deployment, but that's another story. All right, F-15 pilot, sweet. Is there anything you wish you did differently during flight school that would have helped you? No, I think flight school, I did well enough to get to where I wanted to be. I did well enough to get picked up for tailhook, which is where you go to advanced flight training. You're not guaranteed jets at that point, but you're guaranteed to fly an airplane with a tailhook that lands on an aircraft carrier, and then halfway through advanced, then you split up whether you're going to fly E2, C2, or whether you're going to fly jets. And then you are told halfway through what you're going to fly. And I was told F-18. So nothing, I think I did everything as well as I could have. I wouldn't change that. How did you get selected for the F-18 during training? So that all comes down to primary. So API, do well in API. And then going into primary flight training, where I flew the T-34, the Navy's now flying the T-6, and that's a year of training. I mentioned earlier, but the key is the brief ahead of time, being prepared for that, doing well, setting the groundwork for future success early on, and showing the instructor that you are prepared goes a long ways. And I did that, not only prepared in the brief. The other key is in the debrief when you are getting feedback from the instructor. I can't tell you how many students I saw going through flight school who did not have a pen and paper with them when they were getting feedback. They were just listening to the feedback and they weren't taking notes. And when you don't take notes, like I always had a pen and paper, I always wrote down everything the instructor said so then I could look back over it. And just by writing that down, you are showing the instructor that you care and that you're listening to them. And that goes a long ways when they are evaluating you later on. How are call signs chosen? And if it's not to your liking, can you refuse it? All right. Call signs are chosen by the squadron at what's called a call sign review board. So the first 6 months to a year, you're stuck with FNG. You're the fucking new guy and your call sign is FNG until you do something noteworthy to earn a call sign. And throughout those first few months, there are random call signs being put on the call sign review board, which is a special whiteboard either in the ready room or in the ops space. And that's being written down. Ultimately, when there's enough up there, enough material, maybe on a Friday afternoon, before everyone goes home for the weekend, we hold a call sign review board. You call the new guy up to the front of the room. Everyone else in the squadron is sitting there. And then you have someone leading the call sign review board, going down the list of call signs. Everyone's laughing, joking. Ultimately, they start raising their hands and voting on call signs for the new guy. And we kind of narrow it down to the top 2 or 3 call signs. And then those call signs get voted on for a final call sign. You cannot refuse it. If you refuse it or if you act like you hate it, then it will only stick. So, some are just placeholders and they can change over the next few months. But if you act like you hate it or you say you refuse it, then it sure is your shit sticking. All right. Love to see some more case 1, case 3 approaches. All right. I'll see if I have anything else. If I don't, maybe I can reach out to some guys and see if they have any material that they're willing to share. Does disclosing any pre-service drug use in the security clearance disqualify you? I guess it depends on what the drug use is. I did not go through this, but I do have plenty of buddies who admitted to smoking pot in the pre-screening security clearance. So if that tells you anything, I would be honest about it. If you're still doing that, I would immediately cut it out and I would say, hey, I did this. And then I kind of got my shit together and realized that I wanted to be a pilot and I wanted to serve in the military, and immediately stopped and started focusing on my health and my academics and a path forward to becoming a pilot and earning a security clearance. So I think if you're upfront with them, then that's going to go a lot further than if you lie about it. And that's a judgment call on your part. They're obviously assessing integrity, and in order to be a naval officer, hopefully you have that. Is there an actual rule about pilots having mustaches? I've for real never seen a pilot with a B- mustache. I'm pretty serious. There's no rule about pilots having mustaches. Usually we have mustaches prior to going on deployment or anytime we were doing boat operations, so carrier qualifications or operating around the boat. During normal training flight ops, most guys don't rock a mustache, but as we're getting ready to go out on the aircraft carrier, then the mustaches start coming out. And there are regulations on mustaches, but pilots rarely adhere to those regulations, and we'll leave it at that. I think most of us feel like it gives us superpowers around the aircraft carrier. My dad is F-18F Super Hornet pilot. That's badass. Favorite Warbird? I don't know. I think I'm partial to the F4U Corsair. Go Navy. Case 3 is usually dark. Yeah, that is true. It's either dark or bad weather. Thank you, Alex, for sharing your experience in Aviator. Air National Guard pilot fly the F-15C Eagle. Yeah, there are Air National Guard guys who fly F-15s. They also fly F-16s. They also fly A-10s. They also fly KC-135s, 130s, something like that. They fly they fly all kinds of stuff. How sure if this question has already been asked, but what are the rules for cameras in the cockpit? What is it hard to get cleared to post the footage? Okay, so there are rules for cameras in the cockpit. It depends on the mission. It depends on what we're doing, what we have on the aircraft at the time. Going through flight school, they're hard up. Hey, no cockpit footage. As you get into the fleet squadron, it is really up to the commanding officer and you as a pilot, and you're pretty familiar with what is secret and what is not at that point. So you obviously are around this all day and you know what is classified and what is not. And I will tell you this, basic administrative flying around the aircraft carrier or in the F-18 is not classified. So there is some sensitive information in it, and all of that is cleared and discussed with our intelligence officer, especially, if it's questionable. I am pilot F-18. All right. Also, were those all of your squadrons? I see 103, 106 on the wall. Yeah, and VFA 41. So I went to the FRS at 122 in Lemoore. Then I joined VFA 41, the Black Aces. Then I was an instructor at VFA 106. And then I was Super JO with VFA 103, Jolly Rogers. Sorry, I keep this. I guess when y'all post, it kind of moves my conversation here. So I'm trying to get back. Black Aces, you must have spent time in Lemoore. Yeah, I spent 5 years in Lemoore going through 122. And then I was at the Black Aces, and then I got extended at the Black Aces for about 8 months. I know a group of fighter pilot wives that went to Ibiza for a girls' trip. That's sweet. Does previous enlistment experience, particularly plane maintenance, make you more attractive for a pilot slot? I would say it probably affords you a letter of recommendation, or you might have some sort of ties to pilots who could put in a good word or potentially know people. But I would say all in all, know that really what matters is your GPA and your ASTB scores. So I mentioned that earlier, but if you're going to focus on two things to do to pick up a pilot slot, it's those two things. Kind of briefly mentioned what your major is. It's a toss up, if you're going to do poorly in a technical major, then it's probably in your best interest to do well in maybe a lower tier major, so you can have a high GPA and do well in the ASTB. Okay, because I was thinking to enlist and go ahead and get that 4-year bachelor degree, do the enlisted job, then afterwards apply for OCS, still learning. You can certainly enlist. You're not going to get your 4-year bachelor degree while you are enlisted unless you enlist and then get accepted to the Seaman to Admiral State 21 program. And realize that's a competitive program. You're going up against other enlisted folks who also want to transition, get their 4-year degree, and become an officer and potentially a pilot. So if you enlist now, then you're going to have to go through boot camp. You're going to have to go through a few years of not getting your degree. Then you're going to have to go to State 21. You're going to have to compete. You're going to have to get picked up for that spot. Then you're going to have to go to school, et cetera. So over to you. If you want to get in the military right now as soon as possible and then figure it out, then enlisting is a great way to go. If you want to be a little bit more methodical about it, I would try to go the ROTC route. I'm telling you, it's a great way to go. What is your diet like? Probably should be better. I eat everything. What are the best tips for withstanding the G-forces you feel while flying? My body's not the best with G's. My resting G tolerance is about 3.8, 4 G's. Obviously, that's why we learn the anti-G straining maneuver, or AGSM, and it's why we wear a G suit. Really, the best thing you can do is like smoke and not be as cardiovascularly fit. If you have a short neck, that also helps. If you're pretty thick, that also helps. But really, the best thing you can do is strengthen your core and your lower body, doing leg workouts, doing core workouts, and practice the AGSM. Can you briefly describe your UAP experience? I could probably go on and on about that, so let's skip over that for now. Is flying a modern aircraft worse than going on roller coasters? Worse, I don't know in what sense. I enjoy roller coasters. Flying a modern aircraft is a lot of fun, especially because you're on the controls. So you can do everything in a jet that you're going to do in a roller coaster, and much more. I don't have any answers for winning wars around here. I'm just one of the guys who flies the jets. Tic Tac situations, I don't know. Tic Tacs are real. They're out there. Be careful. Thank you for your service and help to all fighter pilot wannabes. Best of luck. Thank you. I have never tried digital combat flight simulator. Why is America pissing away so much money on a loser military? You're gonna have to talk to your congressman, bro. I have no idea. Probably so you can make comments like that. If you enlist, you're not going to get into OCS for a long time. It's very hard to make the transition until you have a more senior role. I'd call your local. Yeah, Alex, you got it. Nice answer. Good morning. What groundos do you like better, LDOs or CWOs? They're all different. I love cool badasses who are down to party and good to their people and enjoy hanging out in the ready room. Break down some of the growling Sidewinder videos. I'll have to take a look at those. Would Americans have health care if all the money didn't get wasted on the military? Timothy Clark, why are you watching this, dude? I don't have answers for you. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? Damn, that's a tough question. Probably one duck. What is a good course distance from the boat on case 1 downwind? All right. Depends. Are you flying a Legacy Hornet or are you flying a Super Hornet? Because the turning radius is different on both. I've flown both the Legacy Hornet and the Super Hornet. I would say go with 1.1 to 1.3 and you'll be good. Let's see here. Why do F-18 pilots not hold the stick when being launched off the carrier? That's a great question. So when you're being launched off the carrier, that's a lot of backward G forces on you. If you are holding the stick, what do you think is going to happen to the stick? If you're holding the stick and you get launched, that stick is going to go in your lap, and then the jet is going to go like this. You're still low on airspeed, and you need wings straight and level to get that lift. So that is the reason we don't hold on to the stick. The aircraft is trimmed up to fly away from the aircraft carrier, which is why we hold the towel rack. As soon as we're off the end, we can transition our hand to the stick. Hopefully that answers your question. Hello, NAS Fort Worth. My call sign is hammer because I hammer it downrange on target. It sounds like an Air Force call sign. Are you a shellback? I am a shellback. Fighter pilots are well paid. Why are you asking for money? I'm not asking anybody for money. See ya, F-15 pilot. Alex Bowman, the NASCAR driver. I've never seen him race, but I am familiar with him. Yeah, I've got to be a fan. We got the same name. Hello, Brazil. Did you start your flying career as a fighter pilot, or were you a private commercial pilot beforehand? I did pick up my private pilot's license while I was in high school. I think I was 17 or 18. I fortunately had the ability to do that for fun. I grew up flying with my dad. He had a little airplane, a Cherokee 180, that I then bought from him. So I had a little bit of flight experience prior to going to ROTC and subsequently flight school. I do not know Commander Dave Fravor, but I hear him on Joe Rogan all the time. Thanks for the support, Joe. Do you get to pick what naval air station or aircraft carrier you will deploy on? You do not get to pick your aircraft carrier. Whatever squadron you go to, they are part of an air wing, and that air wing is attached to an aircraft carrier. So that is your aircraft carrier. But you do get a preference for your naval air station, and that being in terms of East Coast, West Coast. As an F-18 guy, there's only two naval air stations that we're based out of in the U.S., and that is Oceana, NAS Oceana in Virginia Beach, and NAS Lemoore out in California. While you're putting in your preference sheet, you have the ability to put a preference on East Coast, West Coast, or what platform you're going to fly. So you might be, hey, I'm hard up on flying East Coast because I got family on the East Coast. My wife's on the East Coast, etc. I'll fly anything on the East Coast, or whether it's E or F versions, or no, I just want to be an Echo pilot. I don't care where I'm stationed. So that is a possibility when you're putting in your dream sheet. Is serving in the military for aviation better than making hours in your local flight school? 100%. Absolutely. No doubt about it. If you're going to build hours, the best way to do it is in the military. All commercial pilots, like 70% of them are military guys. And if you're a military guy and you want to go commercial, you're going to be able to go commercial, and you're going to have a lot more experience than a local flight school. You're going to be able to do a lot different type of flying in a lot different scenarios and a lot different weather, et cetera. You're just going to have a much better experience, and the military pays for those flight hours along with giving you a paycheck. So 100% it's better. Can you show us your helmet? Yeah, I can show you one of my helmets. I don't have the other one in here right now. This is it. Call sign tender. This is my Black Aces helmet. There it is. Standard visor. Clips on, clips off. Nothing fancy. But I wore it a lot. And then I was fortunate enough to get a second helmet. Normally, you transition squadrons, and they rip all this off and put a new squadron logo on it. I was able to finagle my way into getting a second helmet. Worst carrier landing story. I launched out the boat in the North Arabian Sea at 11 p.m. one night, 2300 for you military folk. As soon as I hit the end of the cat shot, everything in the cockpit went dark, lost both generators. Normally, one generator will hold the electrical load. Gen tie didn't work, went completely dark. Engines were still running. Transitioned down to my standbys, pitch black. Fortunately, I flew with a light lanyard around my neck. I was able to stick that in my mouth, look down, keep it at full throttle. We went to max AB and started climbing out, and ultimately was able to get one generator back online. However, not all of my systems back. We were able to call. We had the tanker join up on us and bring us back in to land, but did not have a HUD, which made it a little bit more difficult. After living the high-speed life, if you were to go back and select a different community, which one would you choose? If I was going to choose a different community other than F-18s, now, honestly, if I could fly anything else in the Navy, I would fly C2s. The Greyhound, C2 Greyhound, those guys are living the life. It is so awesome. They fly around the boat. They're part of the tailhook community. They get per diem because they don't live on the boat on deployment. They are flying parts on and off the boat, mail on and off the boat daily, making more money than all of us, sleeping in a hotel room, and they just party animals. It's awesome. I'm an electrical engineering major with a 3.5. Will I be a good candidate to compete for a pilot? Yeah, 100%. You'll be a great candidate. Yeah, for hockey skate, good luck. Let me know how it goes. OCS in November. Badass. Yeah, always consider flying commercial jets. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but yeah, not really for me, but I would still consider it if things don't work out. What class medical do you hold? I hold a class 1 medical. What is it? Class 1, class 3 medical. I don't freaking know. I have a Navy upshit that's good for 2 years. I do need to rehack my general aviation medical. You really need to have fighter pilot eyesight. I mentioned this in check out the part 2 video about eyesight. It's covered there. It's linked to the specifics for what eyesight you need. But you don't need 20/20. You need at least 20/40, or your uncorrected vision has to be correctable to 20/20. And there's some other stuff in there. Is there a helmet decorator guy? Yeah, our PRs, parachute riggers down in the shop who manage all of our flight gear, helmets, vests, G suits, all the equipment, all our radios, C cells, all our emergency equipment, seat pans, oxygen hoses, all that stuff. Those guys and girls are phenomenal, and they decorate the helmets. They keep the helmets in shape, and a lot of other things. How much does your helmet cost? I have no idea. I didn't pay for it. The Navy gave it to me. Yeah, Mason, we answered that question. Join the Navy, get your flight hours that way. How often are HMDs used? I don't know. Are you talking about joint helmet mounted queuing systems? Are you talking about our NVDs? So honestly, just about every day flight, I flew with a Jahemix, which is a helmet mounted device that goes on it's actually a different helmet. So although I have this helmet, it is not set up for a joint helmet mounted queuing system. That helmet is a loaner while you're in the squadron, and I would wear that on most flights because it gave me the symbology in the aircraft and is much more lethal helmet to wear. At night, I would wear night vision goggles, and then on this helmet, I would wear night vision goggles. And then as they transition to NVCDs, I would wear the other helmet that the Navy loaned me for night. SNA slot here. Brian, awaiting OCS in August. Any books or study material you recommend for phase 1? Okay, so you're going to OCS. You probably need to be focused more on OCS right now, other than like aviation stuff. So if you haven't already looked through, like, I'm sure there's a lot of gouge on like how to do well on OCS, but if you can go ahead and memorize like your general military tenets of a military officer, all that stuff, your standing like commanding, general orders of a century, like all those things. I would make sure you memorize that if you're going to study anything. Once you're out of OCS, then you will go to Pensacola, and prior to classing up, you'll probably be down there. I don't know what the wait is now, at least a couple weeks before you class up, and hopefully you can get hooked up with someone who's ahead of you, and you can get those books handed down to you. I remember I gave a lot of my study books to guys who are a few months behind me so they could go ahead and start studying that after I was done with them. So hopefully you can get hooked up with something like that and be a step ahead. Okay, Legacy versus Super, BFM. Who's your money on? I don't know. That's tough. It really depends on who's flying the jet. But I think a Legacy is more fun to fly than a Super. It's a lot more snappy. It's not a lot snappier, and so who knows? It also depends on what altitude. If we're low altitude, I'm going Super all day. High altitude, probably going Legacy. 1 to 1.3 for Legacy. Yeah, bump that out another 0.1 if you're in a Super. Obviously, those numbers are based on fuel weight. If you're low on fuel, you're going to have to bump it in. How often do pilots, officers socialize with enlisted personnel? Not very often outside of work. You know, they're like social mixers, Christmas party, that sort of thing. But as far as socializing, it's not a whole lot. We do now enlisted chiefs and stuff. We would hang out with them. We'd have like senior enlisted officer get-togethers that we would socialize a little bit more. But I wish we could have done more of that. F-14 Tomcat, I think it's badass. Hey, Alex, you ever flown the VR 1350 51? Yes, I have flown that. Yeah, all the P&W, Pacific Northwest low levels are freaking sweet because there's mountains and there's snow and there's water and it's awesome. Reback line 4-6 and restrictions. If I was ready for 9 line, badass. Thank you for the support. What's up? Hope to be a Growler pilot someday. Sweet. You hope to make Naval Aviation edits on social media. I would say if you want to be a pilot, do not advertise that you want to make Naval Aviation edits on social media. I'm out and I already feel bad that I'm on here live streaming. Food is not that great. Anglico Marine here, so we clearly love working with you guys. Badass, yeah. We helped out a lot of Marines on the ground. Having a Wizzo ever annoying? Feel like an IP? Sometimes Wizzos can be annoying, especially when you're a junior pilot going to your first fleet squadron and maybe you have to fly with a senior Wizzo. Usually it's a great working relationship and they can kind of coach you through some of the system stuff while you're still learning it as a new guy. As you become a more senior pilot, then no, it's never like that. And usually you're the instructor for junior Wizzos who are joining the squadron. What do you think about Air Force pilots? Are Navy pilots better? You know, obviously I'm partial to the Navy and we do a lot of cool flying around the boat and at night and bad weather that Air Force guys don't do. That being said, Air Force guys get to focus usually on a single mission set, which makes them really good at what they do. So if they're specifically focused on air-to-air or they're specifically focused on air-to-surface, then they do that very well and their aircraft is equipped for that very well. As an F-18 guy, our aircraft is equipped very well for landing on aircraft carriers and carrying both air-to-air and air-to-surface ordnance. We can go anywhere in the world, and we need to know both mission sets, air-to-air and air-to-surface. We do it all, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. So that being said, we get exposure to all that. We try to be as good as we can at all that stuff. But, you know, if you're going up against a guy who's doing air-to-air every day, all day, and that's their sole job, well, we'll see what happens. You know, I still think Navy guys are better because they land on boats at night in bad weather. All right, let's see. I've got another 15 minutes here. I'll try to get through some of these questions quick as possible. How competitive is it to become an IP after your first sea tour? Most folks go to an IP or production billet. It is competitive. It's probably the most competitive. Go to the FRS and instruct in the F-18. Otherwise, if you don't get that instructor role, then you're going to go instruct in advanced or primary. Most guys will then go instruct in the T-45, which is the Navy's jet trainer, if they don't pick up a instructor pilot spot at the FRS. Cool. I would say that I have a ton of respect for single seat pilots versus two seat. Being a proud guy and talking to either pilots or wizzos, I will say single seat guys have way too much shit going on. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for those guys too. Obviously, we train to do everything single seat. You are trained as a single seat pilot going through the FRS, and then you have to learn TCC, tactical crew coordination, once you get to your fleet squadron and are flying with a wizzo every day. And I will say a two-seat squadron, a two-seat aircraft, a Foxtrot aircraft with a seasoned aircrew team, pilot and wizzo, is way more lethal than a single-seat aircraft. Living situation like for JOs on the carrier. My first deployment, I was in an 8-man, so me and 7 other guys bunked up 2 high regular bunk beds. My most recent last 10-month deployment, I was in a 3-man stateroom on a 3 high rack. So, I mean, it's tight quarters, but for the aircraft carrier, it's pretty nice considering what all the enlisted folks berthing, what those folks have to go through. Have you passed all of your aviation exams? I have. You didn't have any HUD on the MFD display, also due to gen loss. No, I did have the left DDI up, but it is a HUD repeater. It is not a HUD. Obviously, it can only be a HUD if it is on the HUD, the heads-up display. A heads-up display repeater on the MFD is helpful for sure, but when you are landing on the boat at night, you do not have the time to look down at your MFD once you get to in the middle position. So you don't need it necessarily, but yeah, you're not looking at the MFD when you're laying on the boat. What are the drawbacks of military pilot life? Would you recommend the pilot life to your future child? The drawbacks of a military pilot are you are gone a lot. You're gone a shit ton. You work hard, and it can be a dangerous career, right? I've lost a lot of friends. About 7 people I've known have been killed in aviation incidents over the past 10 years. And we usually lose a pilot. If I don't know them personally, then I know of them. Usually lose at least 1 pilot a year, and that's been going on for decades. So that's obviously a drawback. Would I recommend it to my future child? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had an awesome time. I think everyone should serve. It's a great opportunity to see the world. We do so much cool shit that most 24-year-olds, I mean, I was flying the F-18 when I was 24. Like most 24-year-olds don't get to strap into an $80 million jet and go rage around in the desert. So it's freaking awesome. Like whatever service you do, whatever aircraft you fly, as a military pilot, you just make great friends. And really what makes it so awesome is the ready room and all the cool people from all over the country that you become really tight with. So 100%. Took the practice ASTB. Okay. Is the studying in dental school more intense than flight training? No, I would say it's about the same, pretty similar. I mean, I worked really hard in flight school because I really wanted to fly F-18s. It's not difficult. It's just a matter of putting in the time and learning it. So you're going to have to make sacrifices. You're not going to be able to go out raging with your friends all night. The unique places you have enjoyed off ship in ports abroad. So Bahrain, Oman, Guam, Singapore, South Korea, Philippines, to name a few. Honestly, I can't recall like specific places, but I really enjoyed South Korea. I really enjoyed Singapore, Guam, Oman, not so much. Bahrain was cool because we hadn't been in port in like 5 months, so that was nice. Really, anytime you get to pull in a port is phenomenal. Really, the best port call was Hawaii on our way home. Why is making hours in the military better than local flight school? I've already mentioned that, Mason. Military pays for it, and you get paid, and you get a better experience, and you get to fly cooler aircraft than you would at your local flight school. Dam busters, badass. Shortage of crop duster pilots here in the Midwest. Damn, I would love to fly a crop duster. Let me get on that train. Do you get stationed at a lot of different stations, like around the world? As an F-18 guy, there are 2 places you can get stationed flying F-18s in the United States. East Coast, Oceana, Virginia Beach, West Coast, Lemoore, California, and then you may get stationed over in Japan. So those are really the 3 places to get stationed, and you move around about every 3 years from a sea duty to a shore duty to a sea duty to a shore duty, etc., and goes from there. Fly Navy. Yeah, helmets are expensive. $400,000 for F-35 helmet. Yeah, our joint helmet mounted cooling system was like $250,000. I don't know what this helmet costs. Last question before I get back to studying. Any pro gamer tips for us primary studs? I don't know what you mean by that. Sorry, dude. Best of luck in primary. You got it. Study hard. Practice those EPs. Collaboration with Captain Joe. I don't know who these people are. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm just kind of getting back onto YouTube after a time away, so I'll have to look them up. Yeah, I flew for 11 years. Obviously, the first 2 years of that was going through flight school, so I didn't start flying the F-18 until my 3rd year in the Navy. I was in the Navy for 11 years. Or the standard 3 deployments and 1 short tour. So deployable tour, short tour as an instructor pilot, back on a deployable tour. Best cruise video, VFA 103, 2016. YF-23 should have won the ATF competition. I don't know much about that. How long can you stay active as a Navy pilot? Would airlines be the next step? You can stay active for as long as you want, really. 20 years, 30 years plus. Become an admiral someday. You're not going to be flying a whole lot, but it's still possible. Airlines is usually the next step, yeah, for most folks who are Navy pilots and then get out. It's the easiest transition and pays well. Looking to join active duty, avionics. Okay. I'm not sure which way to lean towards the Air Force or the Navy. Which branch do you think is in more need of fighter pilots? I don't know which is in more need of fighter pilots, honestly. I would say, there's a lot of benefits to being in the Air Force. There's a lot of cool things about being in the Navy. There's a lot of downsides to both. I'm going to post a video. It reminds me, I'm going to post a video about the goods and others of being in the Navy and considerations for Air Force versus the Navy. And then I'll leave you with a text message that has been passed down for someone asking this specific question and what the answer is to that. So I'll get back to you. How did you guys train for G's? Leg workouts, going to the centrifuge, AGSM, anti-G straining maneuver. And it's really just the centrifuge. And once you pass that, the training is in the aircraft. How many hours of flight do you have? 1900-ish. And I get a lot of, like, I don't know, people want to compare, like, oh, you only have this many hours. versus like someone who has like 3,000 airline hours or whatever transport hours. Like, people need to realize there's a difference between strapping an F-18 on for an hour, hour and a half versus doing a 5-hour C-130 flight or P-3 flight, right? So our comparison is apples and oranges. And when you are applying to the airlines, there is a different factor. It's like a 1.5 times factor for based on what type of hours they are. So if they're F-18 fighter hours, even though you might not have as many hours as someone who's flying a transport aircraft, the hours that you are in that aircraft are a lot more tactical, and so they get counted at a higher rate than other hours. So comparing hours is like comparing apples and oranges. Do you think coming from Honduras, I'd be any kind of disadvantage when applying for OCS? You want to become a naval aviator, so you have to be a U.S. citizen to become a Navy pilot. You can enlist. You can be a naturalized citizen, but you have to be a U.S. citizen in order to become a Navy fighter pilot. So you need to work on citizenship first. Western Australia, Andrew, what's up? Did you join the Air Force Academy? No, I went through UNC ROTC and joined the Navy. Are modern jets the same? They're probably a little bit more refined than when you were in them. However, they are pretty sparse and tight quarters. All right, folks, 5 minutes. Yeah, the walleye weapon was sweet. I've never trained with that. More and more UAVs to kick us out of the cockpits. Yeah, it's kind of going that way. I think the F-35 is probably the last of the manned fighter aircraft. So if you want to be a fighter pilot, now is probably your last chance to become a fighter pilot over the next 20 years or so. Yeah, we mostly use smart bombs. That is true. We only use smart bombs in country. How fast have you been in the Hornet? Pretty fast. I bet you have an eyeball on the AOA indexer and have your head out the glass as well during the landing. Yeah, so AOA indexer is definitely in our line of sight, and that's kind of out of the corner of our eye that we keep a scan on that. Short and long-term goals in the next 5 to 10 years. Short-term goal is I am currently in dental school, so I got to graduate dental school. Long-term goal is to start a dental practice and continue flying. Gang signs to the ground crew before taxi. I don't know what signs you mean, right? We have 3 fingers. That's the APU. You have cranking 1. That's engine 1. The left engine, you have cranking 2, which is the right engine. Whenever we're doing units of measure, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You would never use 10. You would use 1, 0. What else? You guys will see in videos like this means we're climbing. You'll see this means we're descending. You'll see this, which is a kiss-off signal into the brake. You might see 4 kiss, which is a 4-second brake. Hey, I'm going to brake. 4 seconds later, I want my wingman to brake. Things like that. All right, yeah. Hours count as 1.5. Yep. Question about JDAM modes when dropping GB38s, and I select the release mode. I'm giving auto loft angles like 45. We never use auto loft, so I don't know what that's about. I'm not a DCS player. What do I think about fighter pilots from other countries? I think I have respect for all fighter pilots. I think they're all awesome. Okay, ever run into prior O's from different branches flying in the Navy? I've got a little over a year left in the Marine Corps, and I'm looking to make the transition over. I don't know what you mean by that. I've run into definitely other folks who fly, like reservists who may have been in the Air Force and are now in the Navy, or Marines and now Navy, etc. Several times. We have transition guys, or not transition guys, but we have exchange guys who came and fly with us from the Air Force and from Australia. All right, I'll answer two more questions. When was the last time you used gravity bombs like Mark 84s and Mark 82s? We still use those for training, and we'll use the bomb body now on deployment, but it's equipped with a guidance kit, precision guidance kit, whether that's a JDAM or laser guided bomb. But we still use dumb bombs for training to practice our roll-ins. Can the Navy force you back into service if we go to war? Yeah, I'm sure they could. All right, everyone. Hey, thanks for joining. That's all the time I got. If you want to see more, I am happy to do more live streams, answer questions. Continue to post questions on the videos. I try to check that every now and then, and I try to compile them, and then I can do future videos kind of answering those questions and elaborating more on my experience. Hope you all have a good one, and we'll see you later. See ya.